Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Fertilizer is essential if you want a thick carpet of grass in your yard. Today we're going to talk about how much, how often, and how to do it. Also, you can enjoy your harvest all year long when you can. Today we're canning green beans. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Mr. Booker T. Lee. Mr. Booker is a UT Extension agent right here in Shelby County, Tennessee, and Ms. Kathy Faust will be joining me later. All right, Booker, let's talk about fertilizing.
Okay, let's do that then.
All right, because there's actually an art, right, to spreading
fertilizer. Yeah.
All right. So what do we need to know?
Well, one thing about fertilizer is first thing you need to do is do a soil test.
Okay.
Before you start putting any kind of fertilizer down, you need to know how much to put down. And another thing, you need to check the soil pH. That's very important too now. Because without the soil pH being correct, with all the fertilizer you put down, not going to be used by the plant.
Okay.
So for most lawn grasses, you need a pH between 6.0 and 6.5.
Okay.
And the only way you can tell that is do a soil test. Then to come back and start putting fertilizer down.
Okay.
When you start putting fertilizer down, two things you need to do. If you said put 100 pounds down, you want to go 50 pounds one way and 50 pounds
So
other
not
way.
all 101 field swoop.
Because you could miss spot. I done seen a lot of folks out there cutting their grass, putting fertilizer down. You see light green, dark green, light
Skips.
green.
Okay.
They done skip some spots in there doing that. And the same thing about your lime. When you put the lime down, do the same thing with your lime, putting it down to make sure you get a good coverage.
Okay.
And that's the important thing. Another thing I see, you might see sometimes in your neighborhood, when people put fertilizer down, fertilize the grass. Not the sidewalk.
Yes.
You want to make
I see that
sure
a
that
lot.
grass get right on the grass, on your lawn.
Right.
Where it needed.
No, because if it rains, you know, those pellets are going down the storm drain.
On the storm drain.
Yeah,
And that'd be a problem there.
It's a problem.
And that's why we get a lot of things taken off the market because we misuse when they do
That's
tested environment. They see the water got some fertilizer, some chemicals in there.
Okay.
So make sure you put it right on the grass. And I try to fertilize my grass when I know it's going to rain.
Okay.
I try to make sure that when you put it down, if it doesn't rain, you water it in.
Okay.
Because sometimes it could cause problems in there. So
Because it definitely has to be watered in.
you got to be watered in.
Okay.
Yeah, put it come activated and stuff and doing good.
Okay.
Where you want it in your lawn.
Sure.
So then I want to spread this and that's some fertilizer I got in here. This is a nitrogen fertilizer. I'm going to put it down.
Okay.
I want to go up here. I'm putting it down there. You see the fertilizer coming out of there. You know, come over. I see why I'm hitting it right here. Make sure I don't miss no spot that is still. Then when I make my last turn that way, I start going this way. And that means I'm getting a good coverage on that grass. You get a good coverage. I'm not missing no spots or nothing. So I can cover all that grass right now. Didn't miss a spot. Now you got a pretty green grass. When it rains, you won't see no light green and dark green. And
So no skips?
No skips. So I cut it. I put 50 pounds. If I put 9, I put half this way, half that way, and doing that. So that make it have a good coverage.
Okay. Now, if I had a bag of fertilizer and I had my spreader here, what if I, drop some on the ground? What will happen then?
Look here. You see this green, this spot here?
Yeah.
That's what happened. They waste some right there and they turn it brown in there.
Okay.
But look around there. And that's what nitrogen do to your fertilizer in there. Fertilizer do make it really pretty dark green. See that?
Uh-huh.
It make it grow and turn it green.
All right.
And that's what they're doing right there. Fertilizer turn it green, so they're doing that. But try not to waste when you're doing that.
Because it will burn.
It will burn.
As we can see there.
Right there, you
from
see
that
that
spot.
right there, it will burn. You make sure you take care of that. If you waste some, try to get it up, put it back in your spreader.
Okay.
Then try to water it in if you can.
Okay. So the most important part once you get all of this spread is to do what? Water it in.
Water
right?
it in. Once I try to watch the weather, put it down when it's going to rain, and doing that.
Right.
So that
Because again, if you don't water it in, you're going to get
the brown spot.
brown spots.
Another thing, you don't want to fertilize your zoysia grass with a nitrogen fertilizer until it all the way out of dormancy.
Okay.
You don't want to fertilize with a nitrogen fertilizer when it get ready to go dormancy.
Okay.
Probably about a month before it start going dormancy, hold back on your nitrogen fertilizer.
Okay.
Because you don't want to get no growth going into the winter month.
Right.
So they do that, so that's good.
All right. And that would be for your warm season grass?
Warm season grass.
Okay.
Now, fescue, that's a cool season grass.
Right.
He start picking up during the fall of the year, start growing then. That might we want to start fertilizing that
Okay.
when it start to grow. You don't want to give it no while it's dormant, especially nitrogen fertilizer.
Okay.
Something got nitrogen in there.
All right. And on your bag of fertilizer, of course, you have those 3 numbers. So you want to tell us again about those 3 numbers?
Sometimes we have an incomplete fertilizer, a complete fertilizer. If you got all 3 elements in there, that means that's a complete fertilizer. If one of the numbers missing, that means incomplete fertilizer.
Okay, good.
But on the back fertilizer, you might see some numbers, just call some numbers out like 10, 10, 10, 13, 13, 13 on there. But the first number is nitrogen,
Right.
second number is phosphate, and the third they're gonna be potassium.
Potassium,
It always gonna be like that. If one of those numbers missing, that means that element is missing in
Okay.
that fertilizer.
All right. How often would you fertilize?
It's all depending on how often you fertilize your grass.
Right.
Depending on when you put down in there and what your soil test come back result.
That's right.
Probably no more than 3 times during that growing season.
Right.
And based on the soil test, what you put down.
So how much fertilizer do we need to make our grass green, though?
What normally is, Chris, is based on your soil test recommendation. If you got a big yard there, any kind of nitrogen fertilizer you put down, it's going to probably turn it green. You know, you put 50 pounds down, or 25 pounds down, or 30 pounds, it's going to turn it green some. But how much you put down during that growing season, that'll come back with your soil test.
Right.
Just say you got an acre lot. It tells you to put you need 300 pounds of nitrogen fertilizer that year. You don't want to put 300 pounds down at one time. You might want to put 100 pounds down now. Then come back another month later and put another 100 pounds down, or 6 weeks later and put another 100 pounds down like that in
So
there.
you can break it down.
Break it down in there. You don't want to do all at one time. 'Cause
Right.
You don't want to over fertilize that grass too soon, too much fertilizer in there.
Right.
They can also damage your land when putting too much fertilizer on there, help disease problems come in there.
Right.
So you want to get the right amount of fertilizer, and that's why we tell everybody every time, always do that soil test. Now, soil test normally lasts for 3 years.
Okay.
You know, your pH don't
Yeah.
stay the same for about 3 years in there. Now, a lot of things there, your phosphate and potassium are going to get built up in the soil.
Right.
It normally stay there. But the nitrogen fertilizer you put down, it's going to leach itself out of there. So, and that's why they give you a lot of different recommendations putting fertilizer down. They might say put 6, 12, 12 down. That means you don't be low in nitrogen this time. You put 13, 13, you get an equal amount of everything. And that depends on how you've been taking care of your grass.
Right.
You know, like I take care of my lawn all the time.
Right, right.
Some people might not take care of their lawn, they just getting started off. They might need a little more fertilizer, might need a little more lime in there.
Right.
You can't go out and put some down because your neighbor put some down, he put a lot. His yard might be already good.
Right.
It might be already healthy. Your yard might be just beginning to start doing that. So you want to make sure that's why I said do a soil test.
Do a soil test.
Before you get started off on there, because you don't just put a whole lot of fertilizer down there, because you can't have too much in there. Because on that sheet it tell you now, you're too high. You're too high. Now, if your pH is real high, you can add sulfur to that and bring it back
Right.
down some to tell you that.
Which will take a little while.
Take a little while to tell you add sulfur to your soil and bring it back down to the correct soil pH.
Right.
But like I said, most lawn grasses now need a pH between 6.0 and 6.0 and 6.5. That's for your warm season grass and your cool season grass. When I say warm season, I'm talking about Georgia grass, Bermuda grass. When I'm talking about cool season, I'm talking about your fescue grass.
Okay.
And maybe some of your bluegrasses. And then so that's why I said we all recommend do that soil test.
Always.
Now you check with your local extension service, they have soil boxes.
Right.
And they also have protocol on fertilizer in your lawn.
That's
And
right.
how much to put down for that growing season.
Yeah, but please, on the bag of fertilizer, there's gonna be some directions there as well.
How
So
much to put down and
how much to
everything.
put down,
And
right.
you can adjust your spreader
Right, that's
on
what
there
we
how
do.
much to put down.
That's right.
In there. So you don't want to give it too much fertilizer. You want to get the right amount of fertilizer.
Okay.
And the best doing that is know when to fertilize that grass. Ideal time for when that grass begin to grow.
And it begin to grow. All right. Mr. Booker, we sure appreciate that information.
Well, that's good. Thanks.
Thank you much for that demonstration.
All right then.
Cherry trees have a lot of problems. One of those problems would be the fungal disease, shot hole disease. As you can see, it looked like somebody actually shot these holes. Look at the little holes in the leaves. What will happen is the tree will actually make these leaves fall. They will just drop from the trees. Now, here's the deal. When they drop from the trees, here's what you need to do. Practice good sanitation. We want you to get these leaves up because there still may be fungal spores on these leaves. The root systems have enough carbohydrates in them, so this plant should produce leaves next year.
Hi, Miss Kathy. We canning green beans.
Yes.
Well, thank you. We're definitely going to appreciate this demonstration that you're about to do for us.
Thank you.
All right, so here's my first question, though. Why should we pressure can green beans?
Okay, well, it's very important to pressure can your low acid vegetables, things like green beans, squash, anything low acid has to be pressure canned to kill the bacteria and the possibility of botulism being formed.
Wow. So how do we get started?
Well, the first thing you do is assemble all of your ingredients.
Okay.
And this is something that you may want to just mark a day off on your calendar because you want to have your green beans ready to go. And what I like to do is go to the farmer's market and buy, we normally say about one 1 pound of green beans per pint jar.
Okay.
So if you were going to do a dozen pints, you'd get about 12 pounds of green beans.
Okay.
So you get your green beans ready, your pressure canner, and we like to have people come by the office, bring their lid if they have a dial gauge, and let us test their dial gauge.
Okay.
And we test it at 5, 10, and 15 pounds of pressure. Many times, maybe it's been in an attic and the gasket has dry rotted. So we also tell people before they get started, they want to get a little bit of cooking oil, non-salted cooking oil, and oil that gasket. And they can learn from my experience. We forgot to do this one year. Remember, we had to call y'all in to get the lid off. So you want to go ahead and oil your lid before you get started. And then you want to have your lids simmering. We've got those simmering at 180 degrees. We have our jars. Ideally, we would have a huge stock pot with simmering water, but we don't have that. So we've cheated a little bit. And we've got 4 jars hot in a crock pot, some water simmering because we're doing the cold pack. And then you want to have your canning salt, your basic canning equipment, the timer, and the rings, and also some pot holders.
Sure.
And your instructions. And even if you've done this a dozen times, you still want to have your recipe and read through it so you don't forget anything.
All right, well, we're going to let you go ahead and get started then.
Okay, what we've done, like we said, we went ahead and we've got everything, the water that we need is simmering. So the first thing we're going to do is get one of our hot jars. And people say, well, why do you have to heat these jars up? If you don't have a hot jar and you put it in a hot pressure canner, what's going to happen? The jar will crack. Well, we may still have something crack, but we're going to go ahead and put these green beans in the jar.
Okay, so you fill it up just about to the top?
Just about to the top, and then I'm going to get some hot water. Very hot water. Because see, we've got our hot jar. And we're going to go ahead and spoon that hot water into the jar. I may have to take some of these green beans out. We're just going to go ahead and experiment with this. And you want to fill it to within 1 inch of the top. That's important because you want to have 1 inch of headspace. Okay, so what we can do,
you have to
push
pack it.
these down. You have to pack it down. And like we said, 1 inch, that's probably more than 1 inch. So we can just pour this out. Okay, pour a little of that out. And you may have to experiment. Okay, and we just happen to have a ruler here, and these are in increments of 1/4, 1/2, all the way up to 1 inch.
Okay.
So you see we're looking at about 1 inch. And then we want to run this down the sides of the jar to get out the air bubbles. See all of those
I
air
see 'em.
bubbles?
Yes, you do.
Lots of air bubbles. These green beans are so pretty. I tell you, they're nice and fresh. Then you want to add 1/2 teaspoon of canning salt, about 1/2 teaspoon per pint.
So why are we using the salt?
Well, the salt helps in the preservation, and people have asked me, what's the difference between canning salt and regular salt? Okay, here's the canning salt. You can buy it at any grocery store, but this says pickling and canning salt. It's non-iodized, and it's a much finer salt than regular salt. You can see how fine that is. But that helps in the preservation. So the next thing you want to do, you want to wipe the top of the jar. You want to wipe that real good. Okay, let's see. I may be able to add a few more green beans in there, and I just happen to have some extra green beans. So we're going to put a few more green beans in there because you want to pack them down. Since you're doing pressure canning, what will ultimately happen when we take these out of the pressure canner, the green beans will rise to the top. And you might have 2 inches of water at the bottom, which is okay, but still you want it to look good. So you have to put a lid on this that has been simmering at 180 degrees. So over here we have our pot, and I've got this simmering at 180 degrees.
Ah, so it's right on it.
Yeah, and you can let these simmer for as long as you're doing your pressure canning, but you go ahead and you lift this out, and you put it on the rim, just like that. And then you
So you have to
take
have a good seal.
you've got, see that little rubber on the rim is going to adhere to it. And then you screw this band on just fingertip tight, okay? Just fingertip tight, not too tight. And then we're going to take this and place it into the canner. And if you can see the canner, we've got about 2 to 3 inches of water in our pressure canner. We also have a rack in the bottom of the canner. Let's say you've lost your rack somewhere. You can put a towel in the bottom of this, but you've got to have something on the bottom of the rack. So we're going to go ahead and fill the other 3 jars, and then we'll come back and start up again. Okay.
All right, so that was the last one.
Last one, we've got all 4. And we put these down in the canner, and now we're going to secure the lid. That's the hard part.
Oh, so this is the
Yeah,
hard one.
because you've got 2 V's that you want to line up. Okay, see that V?
Oh, okay.
We're going to line that up right here. Just line it up, and it takes a little muscle, and you just
got it?
close this. Now this is where your patience comes in. We're going to go ahead and turn up the flame. And what we'll do is allow this to vent for 10 minutes.
Okay.
It's going to take several minutes for steam to start coming out of this, but after we allow it to vent for 10 minutes, we're going to put the petcock on, and then that is when our steam, our pressure will start building, and we will count, after it gets up to 11 pounds of pressure, we'll begin counting 20 minutes, and we'll let this pressure for 20 minutes, 11 pounds, and then we'll let it cool down. We're not going to put cold water on it. Some people do that. We will just let it cool down naturally, and after it gets to 0, we'll wait an additional 10 minutes.
Okay. All right, Ms. Kathy, we've been at 0 here for about 10 or 15 minutes, so are we
Yes,
ready?
We're ready.
All right.
Even though I know it has cooled down, I'm still going to use
Okay,
a
sure,
pot holder.
sure.
And I'm going to take the petcock off, and then we're going to open the lid, and you need to remember to tilt it away from you because there will be steam.
Oh, yeah,
So
there's
we're
steam.
tilting that away, and we're going to remove our jars.
Okay.
Oh, the water is still simmering. Okay. And you want to place them on cutting board or a towel away from a draft. And we're going to leave these undisturbed anywhere from 12 to 24 hours.
Okay.
And as the lids seal, we should hear a popping sound. It might happen soon, or it may take several minutes for them to pop. And like we said, these can be kept for up to 2 years. And let me show you some that I've done in years past. These were done in June of 2011. And I found them tilted over, and you see the white residue
Yes, I
on the
see
bottom.
that.
These
That
are
can't
not,
be good.
no, this is not good. They're discolored, and you hear how that sounds.
Okay.
And the lid is puffy, so those are unsafe to eat. These I did in 2012. They remained upright in a cool, dark place, and the lid is still sealed. No discoloration,
right.
still bright green. These are safe.
Okay.
And these I did this past Saturday. I did some salsa. And these are good
Those are
too,
good as well.
for up
Okay.
to 2 years. Okay?
So is there a publication about canning foods?
Yes, we have a publication. It's publication number 724.
Okay.
And you can just go online, publication number 724,
Okay.
and you can download it free of charge.
Okay, well, there goes another pop.
Oh, great. Okay, we're done. With success.
Ms. Kathy, appreciate it again.
Thank you,
So
Chris.
professional. We do appreciate that. Thank you much. All right.
Thank you.
We have an infestation of mealybugs on our mandevillas here. We're going to spray them with malathion. Malathion is an insecticide that's labeled for use on mealybugs. According to the label for mealybug control, it's 1 tablespoon is recommended per gallon of water. So I had to do some math. This is a little over 12 ounces. That's about 1/10 of a gallon. 1/10 of a tablespoon is equal to about 1.4 milliliters. I actually have a measuring spoon, which is 1.25 milliliters. So I'm going to put a little less than my 12.8 ounces in here to make it match my 1.25 milliliters. So, you know, you got to figure all that out. It's so very important to follow the label instructions. So what I'm going to do, fill this up about half full. Now I'm going to try to get my 1.25 milliliters of malathion in here. I'm going to shake it up, and then I'm going to top it off with water. Okay, got that, and I'm going to shake it up again. Okay, and see, I got some on my hand. It leaked a little bit. That's why you wear rubber gloves. Very, very important.
All right, here's our Q&A segment. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, these are good questions we have here. All right, so here's our first viewer email. What is the best way to spray and get rid of what I call mulberry trees?
Okay.
Their roots will sprout all over the yard, and I have a concrete ditch in my backyard that I can't get into anymore to trim them back because of age. And this is Larry. So he wants to get rid of what he calls mulberry trees, okay? And he wants to spray them. So what do you think about that?
Well, a lot of times though, they had a tree there and begin to sprout up all around there.
Okay.
Probably get something like a stump root right away or something, just touch it on there.
Okay.
And spread it on there and see how they're doing. How they doing there. You might keep doing them more than one time.
Sure.
Or one time not going to do that. You know, they don't come back again. Just keep putting on that. You got to have some leaves on there, little growth on there, for you can see it for it to go down into the root system.
Okay.
But you might want to try doing that on there, and that will help some there. But you got to constantly do that. You're not going to do that one time and say it's done though.
Right.
It's going to take some time now.
Gonna take some time.
Yeah, it'll take some time. Now, don't think you're going to do it overnight. Cause I had it in my yard, I do the same thing. Not mulberry, but I had little things sprout up like that.
Okay. So cut it back.
Cut it back.
All right.
Let
Something
it-
else you could do too
let
now,
it grow.
if you want to, you can actually paint a 41% solution of a glyphosate.
Okay.
Right. The turgor pressure will pull it down, you know, down into the roots.
Yeah.
It'll take a little time.
Take some time,
You
yeah.
can do it. You know, you can do it that way.
And also
but you definitely need to, you know, cut it back.
And
you
also
know, to paint it.
need some growth on that too. The little leaves on there.
Oh, just a little bit.
A little bit on there,
Just a
just
little bit.
for it to take down through there.
Right, right.
But you got to constantly keep doing that.
Yeah, you got to keep doing it. That's for sure. You got to starve it out, the carbohydrates.
And try to spray where you spray in a ditch, something like that. Try to spray somewhere that they know it's not going to rain down there. They're
Right.
not going to rain when we try to get into the drainage system.
Okay. Yeah. See, I wouldn't spray.
I would, yeah.
Yeah, I would just paint.
Paint, that'd be good, yeah.
You know, I just paint that 41% solution of glyphosate or whatever you want to use. You know, to go ahead and help
that, yeah.
that stump rot out.
Stump rot out,
you know,
yeah.
to starve of its carbohydrates. Yeah, I wouldn't spray.
Yeah,
just
especially
paint
by
the
that drainage
concentrate.
ditch too. Yeah, that could be
Right.
something to think about too.
That's exactly right. So there you have it, Mr. Larry. Hope that helps you out there. All right, here's our next viewer email. I have zoysia grass,
Okay.
and it was taken over by weeds. Is it okay to use Bonide herbicide now and in a week or so plant some more zoysia plugs? And this is Hope from Queens, New York. How about that?
Whoa, man.
Queens, New York.
All right then.
All right, so let's go back. So zoysia grass, but
Zoysia
she wants to
grass.
use Bonide herbicide.
Herbicide, yeah.
We don't know what kind of herbicide that is.
Nuh-uh.
Right? She just said Bonide herbicide. All right.
Yeah.
Then she wants to plant her zoysia plug.
Oh,
So what do
yeah,
you think
yeah,
about
yeah.
that?
Well, it depends, like you said, depending on what kind of herbicide you have in there.
Okay.
Just read the label on there, and a lot of times they'll tell you how long you will need to wait before you can plant something back in that area. But since you're just doing plug, it should be okay. Just spray it in there. As long as you put no seeds and nothing down in there,
Okay.
it should be okay in there. But just read the label on there, seem like a pre-emerged herbicide, and see what kind of weed you control. She said, what kind of weed?
She said just taken over by weeds.
Oh, she didn't say what kind of weed. So, yeah, you need
A bunch of
you
weeds.
need to identify what we're trying to kill.
Right, yeah,
You
right.
can't just
That's
go out there
first and foremost,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
identify. You can't
Right.
just start spraying stuff. You know, don't spraying it first. So
Right.
try to identify the weed that you're spraying on there.
That's a good point.
And what herbicide do in there. But seem like they're like a pre-emerged herbicide.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm with you on that. We
Yeah.
don't know what kind of weed,
No
nor do
kind
we
of
know
weed,
what kind
yeah.
of herbicide you're going to use to control said weeds.
It's a weed. That's a weed, yeah. You know, in there. So yeah.
Okay, so as long as she doesn't use the seed, she's using zoysia plug.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that
they should be okay. Yeah, should be okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Hope, so there you have it. Make sure you identify that weed first so you have the right herbicide to control those
that weed,
weeds,
yeah.
and then make sure you read and follow the label. Thank you for your question. All right, here's our next viewer email, and this is one we seem to get a lot.
Yeah.
I need to prune my Encore azaleas, but I
Okay.
don't know if I can do that before next spring's bloom.
Okay.
Can you please tell me the correct time or times to prune Encore azaleas? And this is Yvette from Memphis, Tennessee. So when is the correct time for her to prune those encore?
Normally bloom in the springtime,
Okay.
and again
in
in
the
fall.
fall.
Yeah,
Right.
they bloom normally twice in there.
Okay.
But the ideal time be the best time to prune those after they first bloom
Right.
in the springtime.
Right.
You want to spring in there.
Right.
It might slow your fall bloom down just a little bit in there, but you go prune them in the fall. If you don't do it at the right time and they put some new growth on there, and the cold weather hit, it could damage your plant.
Oh, definitely can.
It damage your plant. Then you will have less blooms in the springtime. So the ideal time be the best time to prune that in the springtime. Once they finish blooming now, you might be slack on your second bloom, but if you prune early enough when they finish blooming, they might have time to set more buds on there.
Okay.
In there, yeah, but the encore they normally bloom twice in there.
Bloom twice. Yeah, my mom has encore azaleas at home. She's always asking me this question, so this could be my mom's question. But anyway, yeah, after they finish blooming in the spring is
Yeah.
when you should prune those.
Prune, yeah.
Not in the summer.
Not in the summer.
Not in the fall.
Not in the fall, yeah.
All right. So for maximum bud set, it has to be after they finish blooming in the spring.
In the springtime, yeah.
Yeah. Any other time, you're not going to have blooms the next spring.
Right. Then be upset. We get that call a lot of
We
times.
do get that call a lot, so-
when they prune those plants in there.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
Good question though. So there you have it.
That's a
Yvette.
good question, yeah.
Okay. Spring. After they finish blooming.
After they finish
Yvette.
blooming, yeah.
All right. There you go. All right, Booker. It was fun.
Oh man,
Thank
that's
you for being here. That's it.
I'm ready for another question, man.
That's it. We'll say that for another time.
Okay,
Thank you
then.
for being here.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is questions@familyplotgarden.com. And the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee, 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for joining us. FamilyPlotGardening.com has tons of gardening information you can use. We have more about lawns and preserving your harvest. Go take a look. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.